Well, it's been a very interesting couple of days as of observing the inner machinations of the ANC. And you've got to ask the question whether the ANC today, is it grappling with intellectual and moral issues that most of us already dealt with in our lives? Or is there something else at play? On this Moneymakers with me this evening, we're discussing the vocabulary concessions from the ANC National Policy Conference and which way the party's policies are likely to sway. Lumkile Mondi is a senior lecturer at the School of Economic and Business Sciences at WITS University, and he's been watching the 5th National Policy Conference like a hawk. Or maybe we don't say like the Hawks because they got broken into. Hey, how's that possible? How is the country? I mean, is that sort of epitomise the state of the nation, that the country's elite crime busters have a burglary and computers are stolen?
We remember that, when the country is on autopilot, when all our institutions are in a state of decay, this is not surprising. Mm-hmm. So one would have thought that at least the security institution will be much more organized, but clearly they are not. They've been exposed, they've been caught again. Remember that there's been a continuation process with also the judiciary being under attack. Mm-hmm. So these break-ins are becoming quite a common phenomenon, and yet no one seems to have a risk management plan, which in business is a very critical instrument to have to ensure that you can plan for risks and you've got mitigants if anything can happen.
I got the sense from observing the policy conference over the last couple of days that the ANC, the last thing on its mind is risk mitigation. What's on its mind is unity, and an attempted unity, taking every piece of band-aid they could find and sticking it over the increasingly large cracks that we are seeing appearing in the organisation, rather than fixing the country.
Spot on, Bruce. Remember that, the state of our country, both economically without downgrades, with growing mass of unemployed people, and really the fact that we're in a recession has made them look internally and focus more on unity, believing that maybe if we're united, we can then start coming up with ideas around how do we move forward to redress and these challenges that we have. So I think the bandaging and the plastering and the licking of wounds for those that didn't get what they wanted, if it was radical economic transformation, it's what we're witnessing. Very little about how to fix a failing economy.
Has anything tangible come out from an economic perspective out of 5 days of sitting at Gallagher Estate and chatting?
We didn't expect much will come out of economic policy. Remember that this political party, whose ideas still need to go to the government, whom they argue that acts on their behalf. So there's always a process of the political party, and when it gets to government, it gets fudged. Because remember, when it gets to government, it's going to go through a parliamentary process where us, Bruce, as experts, get invited, and we try and add value or punch holes wherever we can. So that process takes very, very long. So this policy conference was really not so much to come with a plan that will address these challenges, but really to bring unity and hoping that through that unity, then they can think about a plan which will probably come in their manifesto, which is about 2 years to come, that will then address how they will deal with the economy, given the fact that by that time our unemployment had narrowed defined by about 28%.
I mean, but that's the problem, is that the country is moving on, the economy is slowly stuttering to a halt, if not continuing in a recessionary frame. At some point we go into depressionary space if we carry on the trajectory that we're on. Yet nobody within the ANC seems to have the gumption, the strength, the level of moral fibre to stand up and say, hold on a second, this isn't about us, it's about the country. And if we can bring the country right, we save ourselves in the process.
I mean, that's been the weakness of the ANC. Even when it was a liberation movement, it's always been occupied by political seizure when it was a liberation movement. So they've now achieved that. And I remember there's a quote by Oliver Tambo that talks to the fact that, if you think that fighting for liberation is difficult, wait until you are in power. So that diagnosis that they're actually a political movement which is unable to deal with the management of a country, which requires different skill sets, requires an elite of policymakers, well-trained, who understands and embedded in various sectors of our society, in business, in the judiciary, in civil society, who can then help craft those policies. That the ANC now is much, much weaker, particularly post-2007, that even those that were there in smaller numbers, of course, they all went out post-2007. So what remains really is a very strong ANC politically and very weak ANC in terms of crafting policy, implementation, and capability of following through the problems of the economy.
So who comes out strongest out of this particular Congress? There's this policy-making conference, which wasn't really about making policy, but more about the policy of keeping everybody on the same page. Do the centrists come out stronger? Do the populists come out stronger?
So what has emerged is really that in this discussion, they are bandaging themselves, so there's been a lot of compromises. I think what we're going to hear is really a message that says we are now united, we're now going to prepare for our elective conference in December as united, and whoever wins will have to be supported. But all of us, we know that's political speak, that ANC is so rigid with division that even going forward is never going to get together. Something has to give. And we look forward to what will that pressure that will make them give, so that those that understand the importance of leadership in the country and taking the country and all its sectors of society into confidence and really bring us out of this recession to build an economy that's inclusive.
I mean, what's interesting about this, we went into this particular policy-making conference with 2 potential contenders for the ANC leadership. We come out with at least 4.
Yes.
We've got the Premier of Mpumalanga throwing his hat into the ring. We've got the Speaker and the Chairperson of the ANC, Baleka Mbete, throwing her hat into the ring as well. Does this, I mean, that's sort of three of the Premier League, if you like, or 3 sort of Zuma supporters versus 1 independent in the ANC context.
Yes.
Does that make the Zuma supporters more powerful, or does it dilute their authority and their power and give Cyril Ramaphosa a heads up?
Well, in fact, I mean, this whole conference arguably played in the hands of Nkosazana Zuma. She hasn't said a word in the conference.
She hasn't had to.
She hasn't had to, because there are people that are working for her, doing all the work for her. Unlike Cyril was really trying very, very hard to win those that he thinks are not on his side yet. So at the moment, I will argue that there's been no winner. But really, as things stand, I still argue that the Zuma side of things is much stronger. And going forward, I'll think that given the fact that the KZN will be a stronger representation compared to the rest of the country, we may see Nkosazana Zuma pulling through, which will be very good for the opposition. If I'm opposition, I'll be very, very happy to get Nkosazana Zuma as a president, because it allows me then to contest much more effectively in 2019.
But the country suffers as a result, because we don't get the radical economic transformation that we desperately do need.
Sure.
I think everybody agrees that we need radical economic transformation. We might have different perspectives as to what that entails and how that should be done, but we're not going to get it. We're going to get more of the same, and this is an ANC fighting for self-preservation at the cost of the country.
Well, in fact, I mean, that's Nkosazana Zuma faction has gone beyond caring about the country. It's about self-preservation, it's about the ANC, and it's about how they themselves become the new kingpins, the black monopoly capital, rather than what monopoly capital. So they want to be the black monopoly capital. So that's the play about that lot, because if really it was a serious concern about the broader economy, they will then, Nkosazana will have thought through about what is important here. What is important is to bring back the rule of law, is to bring confidence back to institutions of government, so that they can be allowed to do what they know best. At the moment, we all know that with all these leaks that we've seen, not even one person has been arrested, or at least been invited to come to a police station to answer certain questions, because the state believes that I or someone else has got something to answer to.
I mean, is the state increasingly paranoid? I mean, how much of a risk is that?
Well, the risk we see in the economy, that we're in a recession, we have had downgrades, and yet we've got no plan how to respond to it. So that's a sign that, you know what, we actually don't know what to do. So the best thing for us to hide behind what we know best. What we know best is politicking. We know how to politic, we know how to always feel good, because we believe that we're in control with the singing and the chanting. The ANC believes that's still in control, when in fact we all know that something is rotten in South Africa.
How do the rest of us turn it off? How do we ignore it How do you tell your students that there's an economic future in South Africa? How do they ignore the political noise and focus on their big idea? The Mark Lambertis of the future. Mark Lamberti, who of course is the poster man.
Yes.
I was going to call him poster boy, but he's older than that now. He's the poster child of the WITS Business School. People like him, and there'll be the next generation of Lambertis is coming through the WITS Business School. What are you telling them to give them some kind of optimism?
I mean, for us, this is a huge opportunity, because what it does, it tells the important role of the business as a player in society. That in as much as we want to ensure that they thrive, they diversify the wealth that investors ask them or give them mandates to expand. But they work within an environment whereby there are other areas where they need to play a role to shape them. So what we've seen that Business Unity South Africa, we've seen Business Leisure South Africa, all of them coming out very vocal about claiming a stake and a role in policy shaping and in trying to get the country going. So this is very good for us, for our students. It's really to say it's not only about money, about expansion, about new markets. It's also about ensuring that there is rule of law, there's governance, and there is accountability. Because at the moment, the current ruling party has shown us that accountability is a word that you have to search around. What we demand in companies that, when the CEO is not delivering on the dividend, he or she gets out. In this case, we've seen the ANC has allowed Zuma to continue without taking elections.
The key there is Moses Khosana, for example. He was the incoming chairman at Alexander Forbes. Step back. Brian Molefe style, perhaps, to clear his name.
Yes.
We'll see where it comes to from there. But acknowledging that he was mentioned in the Gupta emails, that particular email, that particular interaction is accurate and true, which then gives credence to the emails. The private sector has acted against one of its own for being complicit in something it regards as untoward. We're not seeing it from the state, and that ultimately is desperately worrying.
Well, in fact, what we were saying earlier, it's worrying, but we've been there, Bruce. We've had episodes. So it's very clear to us. I think as society, we need to look as to how, given the opportunity to go to a ballot box, what do we do? And that's the choice that you and me can do have, is at the ballot box to do the right thing.
Lumkile Mondi, thank you very much indeed. Senior lecturer at the School of Economic and Business Sciences at WITS University. Well, the politicians will make their own policy decisions. They'll make their own unity decisions. It'll be up to you, of course, in just under 2 years' time to make a call for yourself and for the country. Till next time on the Moneymakers, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.